days in Scotland and every mile feels like stepping into another world. We're exploring Edinburgh's ancient streets, the dramatic Highlands, Loch Ness, hidden castles, and unforgettable local food. Stay until the end for the best route, essential booking tips, and mistakes that could completely change your trip. Day 1. Edinburgh Old Town. Morning. Edinburgh Castle. Edinburgh struck me like a fairy tale, steeped in history, instantly alive. My journey began at the castle, towering over a city on an ancient volcanic crag, immense and unshakable. To visit, it's best to book your ticket online ahead of time. It costs about $32 online compared to $35 at the gate, but more importantly, tickets often sell out, especially during summer months. Just showing up without one usually means disappointment. You'll likely be turned away. This isn't polished royalty. It's a scarred fortress worn by war and time. Some say its museums are stitched together, and they're not wrong, but its raw presence grabs you. Mons Meg, a 15th century cannon, looms in one corner. Wide enough to crawl through, it once fired stone balls 2 miles. Oxen dragged it 3 miles a day. A misfire in the 1600s shattered it for good, and now it stands cold and silent. The Crown Room draws crowds, the oldest crown jewels in Britain, locked in a dim, narrow corridor. I found it underwhelming. Cramped, slow, rushed, pressed by people behind, I got mere seconds with the glittering regalia. Better was the outer rampart. Wind biting, views sweeping from the slate rooftops to the glittering sea. That panorama delivered the real payoff. The Royal Mile. Emerging from the castle, I landed straight onto Edinburgh's Royal Mile, the pulsing core of the old town. Bags blared, street performers commanded attention, and crowds thronged through the cobbled stretch. The main drag, overcrowded and commercial, endless souvenir shops hawking tartan scarves, magnets, and overpriced shortbreads. A quick scan told me to move on. The real magic hides off the beaten path. I sought out the closes narrow, steep stone alleys wedged between towering medieval buildings. Built upward due to space constraints, these passages now lead to quiet courtyards and winding stairs, worlds apart from the bustle above. Insider tip. Spot Advocates Close, just left out of St. Giles Cathedral. Descend a few steps, then turn back. Through the gap, the Gothic Scot monument frames perfectly in view. A fleeting, unforgettable moment. St. Giles Cathedral. St. Giles Cathedral dominates the Royal Mile with its bold stone steeple, a landmark at Edinburgh's core since 1124. A pivotal force in the 1559 Scottish Reformation, it became John Knox's pulpit. No ticket needed to enter, just a small donation. Inside, the roar of the city vanished. Soaring pillars and vaulted arches framed a hushed, expansive nave. I bypassed the main aisle, drifting instead along the side paths, drawn in by radiant stained glass that warmed the ancient stone. The true gem lay hidden. Thistle Chapel, added in 1911 for Scotland's chivalric order. Its wooden choir stalls brim with masterful carvings, mythical beasts, historical figures, whimsical details. Among them, a tiny angel grinning as it plays bagpipes, a delightfully Scottish flourish in sacred silence. Late morning, the Real Mary King's Close. I hesitated before booking the Real Mary King's Close. $32 for a costumed hour-long tour felt gimmicky, but curiosity in Edinburgh's buried streets won me over, and I'm glad it did. The experience was sharp, immersive, and deeply human. Descend beneath the Royal Mile, and you're not in a set. It's the real 17th century maze of tenements, sealed when the Royal Exchange rose above in the 1700s. Our guide didn't lecture, they became a resident, voicing personal stories of hardship, resilience, and daily life in these cramped, shadowed lanes. No theatrics, just truth. They also dismantled a myth. No, the close wasn't walled up during the 1645 plague with bodies inside. It stayed open. people lived here long after. The upper buildings later reused the old walls. Walking through untouched centuries-old homes, hearing honest history from someone who made it feel immediate, that's rare. This wasn't tourism, it was revelation. Afternoon. Lunch at Makars Mash Bar. After the underground tour, I walked 2 minutes to Makars Mash Bar on top of the mound for lunch. This small, welcoming restaurant serves traditional Scottish comfort food with a playful twist. Each dish comes with flavored mashed potatoes. Main courses cost between $25 and $30 and are filling and satisfying. I wanted to try the haggis, but not too much, so I ordered the mini haggis, neeps, and tatties plate for $14. It came with a silky turnip puree and a rich peppercorn sauce. The haggis was warm, well-seasoned, and tasty. Much better than I thought it'd be, and the texture wasn't off-putting at all. For my main, I picked the slow-cooked lamb shank, braised in red wine and rosemary. It was served with creamy horseradish mash. The flavors were deep and comforting, and the meat was so tender it fell off the bone, creating a meal that felt like a warm hug inside. Greyfriars Kirkyard. After lunch, I headed to Greyfriars Kirkyard, a quiet, free-to-enter sanctuary scattered with moss-covered gravestones steeped in history. But beyond the usual ghostly tales lies a much heavier chapter, one rooted in real suffering rather than legend. At the rear lies the Covenanters' prison. In 1679, over 1,000 Presbyterian rebels were imprisoned here, exposed, shelterless, surviving on scraps for 4 brutal months. Many died from the hunger and disease. Just steps away, their tormentor, George Mackenzie, lies entombed in lavish stone. The injustice is palpable, the opulence of his memorial against the silence of their agony. As I strolled along the winding paths, I spotted small groups of visitors carefully scanning the stones, hunting for names that may have sparked characters in the Harry Potter series. J.K. Rowling wrote the early books in cafes close by, and fans often come looking for graves like Thomas Riddle or William McGonagall, the latter being a real and notoriously bad Scottish poet, not a wizard from Hogwarts. Insider tip. To enter the Covenanters' prison beyond the Iron Gates, join a guided tour. The site is locked to the public, but City of the Dead holds access and brings its history to life through immersive visits. Dunbar's Close Garden. After exploring Greyfriars Kirkyard, I made my way back toward the Royal Mile and strolled downhill toward Holyrood Palace. Nestled in the historic Canongate area, I set out to find Dunbar's Close Garden, a little green oasis tucked quietly behind the row of buildings. Stepping inside, I discovered a charming, carefully tended walled garden. While the space was actually created in the 1970s, it beautifully recreates the elegant, symmetrical style of 17th century gardens once enjoyed by affluent Old Town residents. Neat gravel paths wind between neatly chopped boxwood hedges, with quiet stone benches inviting you to pause and breathe. Just steps from the bustling Royal Mile, this tranquil retreat feels like a world apart. I took a seat for a few moments and honestly, it became one of the most serene spots I encountered across all of the Old Town. Late afternoon, Palace of Holyroodhouse. At the foot of the Royal Mile stands the Palace of Holyroodhouse, Scotland's official royal residence. Entry is around $34 and includes an audio guide that deepens the experience. I began in the oldest part, Mary, Queen of Scots Chambers from the 1560s. Her outer chamber echoes with tension, the site of her heated clashes with preacher John Knox. Adjacent is her bedroom, shadowed by tragedy. There, her husband, Lord Darnley, and nobles pulled her secretary, David Rizzio, into the next room and murdered him. Next, the Great Gallery, a sweeping hall lined with 95 portraits of Scottish kings. Only one woman, Mary. Near the base of some frames, faint slashes mark where soldiers, under orders in 1746, defaced the paintings. Early evening, Arthur's Seat. Behind Edinburgh's Holyrood Palace lies Holyrood Park, dominated by Arthur's Seat. an extinct volcano silent for 340 million years, standing 251 meters high and open to all at no cost. I started near the broad pavement car park, taking the popular red route. It curves left past the ruins of 15th century St. Anthony's Chapel, then shifts from gentle walk to steep, rocky climb, testing stamina and balance. The ascent took 45 minutes. The summit delivers sweeping views of the city, the Firth of Forth, and distant hills stretching in every direction. The final stretch is worn volcanic rock, slick underfoot. For evening hikes, check sunset times. Descending steep, uneven terrain demands daylight. Plan accordingly. Evening, dinner at the Abbey. Descending Arthur's Seat, I headed to Newington for dinner at the Abbey Whiskey Bar on South Clerk Street, a cozy family-run gem tucked away from Royal Mile crowds. It draws locals and students alike with genuine warmth. One of the highlights is their impressive collection of single malt whiskies, hundreds of them thoughtfully gathered from every corner of Scotland. But it's not just about the drinks. The menu features hearty, affordable Scottish fare. I had haggis bonbons, crisp golden bites with a velvety whiskey cream sauce for $9. A full haggis, neeps, and tatties plate will cost you only $15, with vegetarian and vegan versions available. Day 2. Edinburgh New Town. Morning, Calton Hill. My second day in Edinburgh began with a peaceful walk up Calton Hill, a much more relaxed climb compared to the rugged ascent of Arthur's Seat the day before. Nestled right at the edge of the city centre, the hill offers stunning, up-close views of Edinburgh's most famous sights, with the added treat of spotting Arthur's Seat glowing in the distance behind you. At the summit, the National Monument dominates, a Parthenon-inspired tribute to Scottish war dead from the Napoleonic era. Construction launched ambitiously in 1826, but stalled within 3 years due to funding loss. Only 12 columns rose, leaving it a skeletal landmark, dubbed locally as a national disgrace. Adjacent stands the Nelson Monument, steeped in naval history. Since 1853, its time ball has dropped daily at 1 p.m., synced with the 1 o'clock gun from Edinburgh Castle, once guiding ships on the Firth of Forth. For the finest panorama of the city, don't miss climbing the stone staircase to the top of the Nelson Monument. It's a small fee, around $10, but the sweeping views are absolutely worth it. Late morning, Royal Botanic Garden, Edinburgh. For my next stop, I headed north to the Royal Botanic Garden, Edinburgh, a true gem nestled in a city that generously opens its arms and its green spaces to everyone. It's yet another incredible free escape in a city, meaning you don't have to spend a single dollar to wander through its massive 70 acres of stunning grounds. As I wandered along the quiet, meandering paths, I found myself irresistibly drawn to the towering giant redwoods. Planted in the 1850s, shortly after these majestic trees first arrived in Britain, they now rise more than 30 meters or 100 feet above the vibrant lawns. Standing close to their soft, textured bark and gazing up into their lofty branches brings a deep sense of awe and a gentle reminder of how small we are in the grand scheme of nature. Afternoon, lunch at Krem Caramel Cafe and more. Across from the garden gates on Inverleith Row, I stopped at Krem Caramel for lunch, a compact independent cafe bookshop blend with a dreamy pastel palette of pinks and blues evoking the cinematic charm of a Wes Anderson scene. Shelves lined with books wrap around the space, fostering a quiet, unhurried vibe perfect for slowing down. Though it channels old-world European elegance, the cafe pulses with Turkish warmth. I ordered the open-faced salmon and avocado toast for $13. Light, fresh, and satisfying, but the real highlight is the baking counter. Their $7 San Sebastian cheesecake boasts a silken texture and deeply caramelized crust, trading heaviness for refined richness. One slice enjoyed among the books was the calmest reset I needed before a busy afternoon. Scottish National Gallery. Heading back to central Edinburgh, I visited the Scottish National Gallery on the Mound. Another free entry in a city generous with access. Unlike the morning's portrait-focused gallery, this one showcases major European masterpieces. Several works stood out. Van Gogh's Olive Trees 1889, painted during his time at Saint-Remy, pulses with intensity. Thick, swirling strokes capture the shifting Provençal light and the artist's relentless vision. Nearby, Vermeer's Christ in the House of Martha and Mary commands attention, the largest and only biblical scene by the Dutch master, rendered in his signature soft light for quiet, intimate impact. Before leaving, I found Sir Edwin Landseer's The Monarch of the Glen, a towering 1851 portrait of a 12-point red stag. An icon of Scottish wilderness, it's ironically the work of an English artist from London, yet remains a defining image of Highland identity. Late afternoon, Prince's Street Gardens. Stepping from the gallery, I entered the Prince's Street Gardens, a lush green space splitting Edinburgh's old and new towns. This tranquil valley was once the Norloch, a murky defensive lake drained in the late 1700s. Dominating the skyline is the 61-meter Scott Monument, a soot-streaked Gothic spire erected in 1846 for Sir Walter Scott. Still one of the world's largest writer monuments, it demands 287 narrow stone steps and $12 for panoramic views. Further on, the Ross Fountain rises in ornate cast iron, painted turquoise and gold. Crafted in France in 1862, it arrived in 122 parts and was rebuilt on site. Its cascading water frames a prime ground level vista of Edinburgh Castle, perched on ancient volcanic rock. Dean Village. I headed west in the evening, arriving at the quiet charm of Dean Village. Hard to believe this serene spot once thrived as an industrial hub for over 800 years, its energy drawn from the fast-flowing water of Leith, which powered up to 11 grain mills. At its core lies Wellcourt, a red sandstone housing complex built in 1884 for mill workers. Its welcoming courtyard and bold clock tower give it a distinct presence. Above, the Dean Bridge, engineered by Thomas Telford and completed in 1832, spans the gorge with quiet strength. Now, the village is a peaceful residential retreat. No crowds, no tourist shops, just homes nestled along the river, forming a secluded haven just steps from the bustling city above. Evening. Dinner at La Petite Folie. La Petite Folie, tucked above Tudor House on Randolph Place, is a standout find. Housed in a 1900s Category B listed building with a bold half-timbered facade, it cuts a striking figure against Newtown's sandstone backdrop. The menu fuses classic French cuisine with Scotland's freshest seasonal ingredients. Mains priced $23 to $35 include steak frites, beef bourguignon, and refined seafood. I chose the duck confit, crisp-skinned, rich, and impossibly tender, and it delivered. For $10, the creme brulee offered the perfect finish, that crisp caramel crack giving way to smooth custard, a quiet end to an excellent evening. Day 3. The Highlands in Glencoe. Morning. Glencoe Visitor Center. Leaving Edinburgh's cobbled streets behind, I drove 3 hours northwest into the Scottish Highlands, rugged, elemental, and vast. My destination? Glencoe Valley, carved by ice and fire, its cliffs rising from moody slopes across Rannoch Moor's otherworldly expanse. At the compact, free Glencoe Visitor Center, a small parking fee of around $5 helps maintain trails. Exhibits detail the valley's volcanic and glacial origins, plus the 1692 massacre, where government troops slaughtered the welcoming MacDonalds. Outside, a reconstructed 17th century turf and creel house built with heather and earth stands as a quiet symbol of Highland resilience. It's also the perfect launch point. Grab a map, consult rangers for trail updates, then step out to feel Glencoe's raw power firsthand. Late morning. Glencoe Lochan Trails. Armed with a new map, I headed straight for Glencoe Lochan, a serene woodland oasis contrasting the surrounding rugged terrain. In the 1890s, Lord Strathcona, moved by his Canadian wife's longing for home, imported thousands of trees from British Columbia and planted them here to recreate her native forests. For just $4, you get all-day parking and access to 3 linked looped trails, 1 to 2.5 kilometers long, ideal for a 30 to 60-minute escape. Towering evergreens buffer the wind, leaving the Lochan glassy, perfectly mirroring Scotland's dramatic peaks. Walking beneath North American trees while facing ancient Highland mountains delivers a powerful, one-of-a-kind experience, among Glencoe's most evocative and restorative hikes. Afternoon, lunch at Mosa. By the time I reached Glencoe village after my hike, hunger was sharp. Instinct drove me to Moss, a stroke of luck. Tucked in a quiet corner, this family-run cafe draws you in with the morning's fresh, handmade aromas. Katie, the chef, works simply and seasonally. The daily menu, handwritten on a chalkboard, relies on that day's Highland harvest. Expect bold, honest food. Artisan toasties, rich soups, or pristine seafood, plump mussels, scallops seared in garlic butter. Lunch runs about $14 to $22, and soup is just $10. I ordered the seafood special, a glass of crisp local cider, then dark chocolate cake with sharp rhubarb ice cream. Full, content, quietly grateful, I'd found something rare, a humble place that gets everything right. The Lost Valley Hike. Full of energy, I headed to the Three Sisters parking lot to take on the legendary Lost Valley hike, Quar Gabhail. This 5-kilometer round-trip trek is tough, demanding 3 hours of relentless effort for every rewarding view. From the start, the trail plunges into raw wilderness. A steep metal ladder drops you into a narrow gorge, a slender footbridge spans a roaring river, and a slick rock staircase, aided by a safety cable, leads upward. The river crossing, a series of jumps across wet, wobbly stones, tests balance and breath. Then, suddenly, beyond the final boulders, lies a vast hidden alpine bowl, ringed by jagged peaks. In the silence, it's striking to imagine the MacDonalds driving stolen cattle up the same slopes centuries ago. Insider tip: if it's been raining hard, consider giving this one a miss. The river swells quickly and those stepping stones can vanish beneath fast-moving, dangerous water. What starts as an exciting climb can turn risky in no time. Late afternoon, Glencoe Viewpoints. After your hike, take a short drive down the A82 and turn into the main Three Sisters viewpoint, a perfect spot to pause and reflect. As you step out and approach the edge, the towering forms of Bain Fada, Gir Aunach, and Aunach Dubh rise dramatically before you, their dark, rugged ridges cutting into the sky. Behind them, Baidin Nambian stands proudly at 1,150 meters or 3,770 feet, the tallest peak in the glen, watching over the landscape like a quiet guardian. The valley's layout becomes clear, revealing the narrow mountain pass leading to the hidden Lost Valley. The glacial basin stretches below, lush and expansive, evoking the awe and doubt early travelers must have felt confronting this formidable route on foot. Perspective transforms struggle into revelation. Fort William. Leaving Glencoe, I rolled into Fort William, a rugged hub at Ben Nevis's foot and self-proclaimed outdoor capital of the UK. The air crackles with adventure. Climbers, hikers, and roamers converge here, drawn by wild terrain and open skies. The cobbled high street isn't about shopping. It's a pit stop for the outdoors crowd. Boots muddy, jackets weathered, pubs steaming with fish and chips. It's where stories swap and beers flow between expeditions. A quick walk leads to Loch Lomond's edge, pebbled shores, salt-kissed wind, mountain dropping into glassy water. The town's name comes from a 17th century fort built for William III, though rails laid in the 1800s buried most traces. Evening, dinner at the Crofter Bar and Restaurant. For dinner, I walked right into the Crofter Bar and Restaurant on High Street. It's a traditional Highland pub with low lighting, wooden tables, and a cheerful, buzzing atmosphere filled with travelers sharing trail stories over pints of local ale. The menu sticks to heavy Scottish pub comfort food, with main dishes running between $16 and $25. I went for the Balmoral chicken for $21, which comes stuffed with rich, savory haggis and smothered in a creamy whiskey peppercorn sauce over mashed potatoes. It's intensely comforting, deeply satisfying, and exactly what you'd want to dig into after a full day out in the Highlands. Day 4. Loch Ness. Morning. Loch Ness cruise. At dawn, I headed straight to Fort Augustus, a quiet village at Loch Ness's southern tip named after an 18th century fort. Its true highlight, the Caledonian Canal cutting through town. I explored the early 1800s five-lock staircase engineered by Thomas Telford. By the stone walls, I watched iron gates creak open, water splurge, and boats inch through with minimal clearance. Lock keepers barked commands, turning precision maneuvers into quiet theater, perfect for coffee and contemplation. After checking out the locks, I boarded a boat for a ride on the loch, the best way to experience its beauty. The 50-minute boat trip costs between $27 and $32. On the deck, the boat passed Fort Augustus Abbey and Cherry Island, an ancient Iron Age stronghold. Insider tip: skip the crowded tour boats, opt for a high-speed rib instead. It costs more, but flying over waves delivers panoramic sights and freedom from the masses. Afternoon, lunch at Fiddlers Highland Restaurant. En route to Urquhart Castle, I paused in Drumnadrokit, 20 minutes north of the docks, for lunch. At the village green, Fiddlers Highland Restaurant stood vibrant and central. Inside, a striking wall of 500-plus whiskey bottles declared its bold Scottish identity. The air buzzed with easy chatter, locals and visitors mingling in a warm, unpretentious space. The menu offered classic Scottish fare. Mains priced $15 to $32. I chose Cullen skink, creamy, smoky haddock soup, and local haggis. Both delivered intense flavor, a touch of heat, and deep satisfaction. Unfussy, substantial, and memorable. Urquhart Castle. After lunch, I drove to Urquhart Castle, perched on a rocky promontory jutting out into the loch. A key stronghold during Scotland's fighting for independence, it controlled all movement through the Great Glen. Entry, booked online, will cost you about $18. Most of the ruins date back from the 13th to 16th centuries. In 1692, retreating government forces blew up the gatehouse to deny it to Jacobite troops. The shattered stone still lies where it fell. I explored the site and climbed the 5-story Grant Tower where the view opens across the loch's narrowest point, proof of its strategic prize. Insider tip: be sure to book both your entry ticket and parking space online ahead of time. The site regularly fills up, and without a reservation, you might be turned away at the gate, even if you made the trip. Late afternoon, Inverness. After touring Urquhart Castle, I drove to Inverness to unwind and explore the Highland capital. Nestled where the 12-kilometer River Ness meets the Moray Firth, the city's core carries a fresh, riverside energy. I walked south along the banks toward the Ness Islands, wooded retreats in the river's flow linked by springy Victorian suspension bridges from the 1850s. Beneath towering pines with water surging on either side, it feels like wilderness, just 15 minutes from downtown. From there, I circled back and climbed Castle Hill. Perched above the river, Inverness Castle commands the skyline. Once a courthouse and a prison, it's now a reimagined visitor destination. I arrived too late to access the new rooftop terrace and its sweeping 360-degree views, a missed highlight. But strolling the grounds as the sunset gilded the river made the ascent worthwhile. Evening, dinner at the Mustard Seed Restaurant. I dined at the Mustard Seed, a restaurant set in a converted 19th century church on the River Ness. The interior features soaring ceilings, arched windows, and a central log fire, creating a striking double-height dining space. The menu focuses on modern Scottish fare with mains from $21 to $33. I ordered the venison haunch with whole grain mustard mash and red wine sauce, plus Scottish salmon over seafood chowder. The venison was rich, tender, and deeply satisfying, ideal after a day exploring the Highlands. Top seating is on the upper balcony near the river-facing windows. Those tables draw crowds at sunset. Book online at least 2 weeks in advance to secure one. Day 5. Loch Lomond, Doune, and Stirling. Morning, Loch Lomond cruise from Tarbet. Departing Inverness at dawn, I drove 2.5 hours south along the scenic A82 to Tarbet Pier on Loch Lomond's western shore. At over 22 miles long, it's Great Britain's largest lake by surface area, straddling the Highland boundary fault, the natural divide between the rugged Highlands and the gentler southern hills. For $22, a 1-hour circular cruise reaches the loch's dramatic northern end, where fjord-like waters narrow between steep mountain slopes. As the boat passes pine-clad islands and quiet inlets, gray herons stalk the shallows and red deer move silently through forest edges. Tarbet comes from the Gaelic an Tarbert, meaning isthmus, a precise description of the 1.5-mile strip connecting freshwater Loch Lomond to seabound Loch Long. Long before roads, this land bridge was a historic shortcut. Travelers and Viking raiders alike hauled boats across to link the waterways. Late morning, lunch in Luss. From Tarbet, I drove about 10 minutes south along the shore into Luss to grab a bite and explore the village. It's a tiny conservation village lined with rows of neat 18th century stone cottages originally built by the local Cahoon estate to house workers from nearby slate quarries and mills. Walking down the narrow paths toward Luss Pier brings you right to the water's edge, offering a clear view across the loch to Ben Lomond, Scotland's southernmost Munro. For lunch, I stopped at the Coach House Coffee Shop, a cozy spot housed inside an old stone staging post. The counter is stacked with freshly baked tray bakes, giant scones, and local cakes, alongside a menu of hot rolls, toasted paninis, and homemade soups. I grabbed a hot bowl of vegetable soup with crusty bread for $7 and a toasted ham and cheese panini for around $10, paired with a fresh coffee. Afternoon, Doune Castle. My next adventure led me to Doune Castle next, just a scenic 45-minute drive east from Luss towards Stirling. This beautifully preserved medieval stronghold was built in the late 1300s by Robert Stewart, the Duke of Albany, and still proudly stands with its towering 100-foot gatehouse, grand great hall, and original kitchens fully intact. You might recognize the courtyard. It's had a few starring roles. It appeared as Castle Leoch in Outlander, stood in for Winterfell in Game of Thrones, and stole scenes in Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Entry is around $13 and comes with a charming audio guide voiced by none other than Sam Heughan and Terry Jones. Insider tip: entry is timed. Book online ahead of time to secure your spot. Arrive by 4:45 p.m. No entry after, even if the museum closes at 5:30. Stirling Castle. Stirling Castle, a 15-minute drive south of Doune, crowns an ancient volcanic plug with commanding views over the River Forth. For centuries, it guarded the strategic gateway between Scotland's Highlands and Lowlands, securing its place as one of the nation's most vital fortresses. A favorite residence of the Stuart monarchs, it was here in 1543 that infant Mary, Queen of Scots, was crowned. Today, visitors explore the grandest medieval banqueting hall ever built in Scotland and walk through richly restored royal palace chambers. From the ramparts, the surrounding landscape echoes history. Stirling Bridge, where William Wallace triumphed in 1297, and Bannockburn, Robert the Bruce's 1314 victory site, stretch into view. Admission is $24 online and $26 at the gate. Summer access runs until 5 p.m., and winter entry ends at 4 p.m. Evening, dinner at Dishoom. After making the final 1-hour drive to Edinburgh for the last night of the trip, I decided to grab dinner at Dishoom at St. Andrew's Square. It's part of one of the UK's most famous restaurant groups, which recreates the atmosphere of the classic Irani cafes of Bombay. This establishment is legendary as it's the talk of the town and has a cult following. The menu offers family-style Indian cuisine, so I couldn't leave Edinburgh without at least trying one of their famed dishes. I shared a plate of house black dal, a slow-cooked lentil soup simmered for more than 24 hours for around $13. It went really well with the chicken ruby curry for $20 and a garlic naan for $6. It turned out to be a perfect, comforting finale to 5 amazing days of exploring Scotland. Useful info for spending 5 days in Scotland. Best time to visit Scotland. If I were planning this trip again, I'd choose either late spring or early autumn. Those months usually bring the best mix of pleasant weather, longer daylight hours, and roads and attractions that feel much less crowded than the peak of summer. May, June, and September are especially great choices. Daytime temperatures often range between 12 and 20 degrees Celsius or 54 and 68 degrees Fahrenheit, making everything from exploring Edinburgh's Old Town to hiking in Glencoe and cruising on Loch Ness much more enjoyable. Winter has its own appeal, especially if you're hoping to see snow-covered Highland scenery or Edinburgh during the festive season. Still, spring and early autumn are easily the most rewarding times to experience Scotland as a whole. Airport tips. Edinburgh Airport is the most convenient starting point for this trip. The tram and the Airlink 100 Express bus both reach the city center in about 30 minutes, with single tickets costing around $8, and they run frequently throughout the day. If you're planning to explore the Highlands by car, wait until you're leaving the city before picking up your rental. Parking in central Edinburgh can be expensive, and the old town's narrow, cobbled streets are much easier to explore on foot. Where to stay? For your first night, stay in Edinburgh's Old Town or New Town. Both put you within easy walking distance of the castle, the Royal Mile, Prince's Street, and most attractions on this itinerary. Hotels generally cost between $170 and $320 per night. One excellent option is Motel 1 Edinburgh Royale, which offers a fantastic location and great value right beside the Royal Mile. When heading into the Highlands, Fort William makes the ideal base for exploring Glencoe, while Inverness is the best place to spend the night before visiting Loch Ness. Comfortable mid-range hotels in both towns typically range from $140 to $240 per night. If you're looking to splurge, consider staying at one of Scotland's historic country house hotels or castle hotels in the Highlands, where luxury rooms generally start around $350 per night. Getting around. Edinburgh is a wonderfully walkable city, with most of the attractions in this itinerary easily reachable on foot. For longer journeys, the city's trams and Lothian buses are fast and reliable. A single ticket costs around $3.20, while unlimited travel for the day costs around $8, and you can simply tap your bank card or phone to pay. For exploring the Highlands, renting a car is by far the best choice. Expect to pay roughly $55 to $95 per day for a standard rental, giving you the freedom to stop at scenic viewpoints, castles, and hiking trails that public transport often can't reach. Where to eat? Since your main lunches and dinners are already planned, these outstanding restaurants are perfect if you have some extra time or simply want another memorable meal. The Palmerston is one of Edinburgh's most celebrated bistros, known for its seasonal Scottish ingredients, exceptional house-baked bread, and menu that changes daily based on what's freshest. It offers a relaxed atmosphere with beautifully executed dishes, and dinner usually costs $40 to $65 per person. If you're in the mood for creative small plates, book a table at Noto. This Michelin Bib Gourmand restaurant blends Scottish produce with bold Asian influences, serving beautifully presented dishes designed for sharing. Expect to spend around $45 to $70 per person. For elegant modern Scottish cooking, Eleanor's an excellent choice. This intimate neighborhood bistro focuses on seasonal local produce, carefully crafted dishes, and a warm, understated atmosphere that's earned it an outstanding reputation among locals and visitors alike. Dinner generally costs between $55 and $75 per person. These ancient mountains cast a spell, not just with misty peaks, but with steaming tea, cracking fires, and the unmatched warmth of the people. Scotland has this wonderful gift of making you feel like you found a second home. If you felt that warm Scottish welcome through the screen today, make sure you hit like and subscribe. And if you're looking to swap the mountain wilderness for some medieval city charm, click right here for my go-to guide for York's best historic pubs and local haunts. Let's keep exploring.